so that I could be at the same page at what the students are. I'll touch upon those small important legal formalities, which is important for you to know that tomorrow when you pass out from here and you have to set up your enterprise, kaise kare hum? That question is what has to be addressed. So this part as to what the company law procedural requirement is, how do I go about setting up, how do I go about incorporating, how do I go about registering, and so on. Then MSME is a very important sector. See, because you all are budding entrepreneurs, the very fact that you are here in this entrepreneurial camp, you have that entrepreneurial zeal within you. So it's important for you to know what is MSME sector, how will it develop, kahan se kya, we are talking here of the food technology, everything is going through micro innovation is taking place today. That is the world we are living in. So it's very important for you to know what and how MSME sector works. And also then we'll touch upon labor law related, the Factories Act, what it says, and PF, and a little bit of taxation aspect, so that by the time we conclude on this, and tomorrow when you actually plan out that you want to go about setting up an enterprise, you have various basic knowledge ki enterprise agar set up karna hai, so this is how we need to go about it. All right, so I'm starting on with the first, we'll start with the first aspect. So this is how it is. It's just little, it may be little trivial, but I'll just enhance it for your clarity. So we'll start with the first aspect, what I told you, the company law aspects related. So Manar, please continue. You have a question? You've raised your hand. Somebody's raised hand.
Yes, Manar has raised his hand. And ma'am, sorry to interrupt, your presentation is not visible right now.
Presentation is not visible.
Yes, ma'am. Please share it again.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am, but not in the presentation mode.
Is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So this is the first one, what I was saying, since we lost out on the contact. So I'll just reread it, and this is how it looks. So we are talking here of the legal aspects, and the legal aspects are covered under three categories. So the first one we have before us is the company law aspects. Then we have the MSME and the labor law. So how the flow of the class we'll pick up is, we'll talk about the company law aspects first. I'm just repeating it since we lost out on the slide part. So the company law aspects, because that will help us to give a premise as to what the MSME and the labor law changes are. So I'm starting with the first one. This is your company law aspects. Let's pick up the first part of the company law. This is what it is. So tomorrow when you all pass out, you have any business idea. I mean, the last 1 month of this, the crash course, you would have found out at various situations, how do you go about setting up an enterprise, or how do you go about how a feasibility report is to be prepared. Now, if you have any business plan onto yourself, if there is any business plan on your mind, so there are 5 ways in which you can go about setting up an enterprise. And these are the 5 ways what is there before you. Now, before I get on to it and we just try and dissect what are these 5 ways, there are 2 ways under the Companies Act. My apologies. I think I'm just facing a little problem on sharing the entire main run through. Will it be fine if I just keep it in this mode?
Yes, yeah, ma'am. That will be fine, ma'am. It's visible.
Is it okay? All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So and I'll keep my video on. So anything we could just interact on directly. So Now, when we talk about the Companies Act, I just displayed a screen. I stated Companies Act, and it talks about these 5 categories in which you can go about setting up the companies. I'm going to the very, very basic, because tomorrow when you plan to convert your business idea into actually a business model, we have 2 sectors. So one we call as the public sector, the other we call as the private sector. We all understand that. Public sector is what? Where the government puts in stakes. So my MSME Act comes into the foray at that time. What is the private sector? Private sector where you and I will pool in our capital. The private capital is pooled in, and then thereafter we start a business. So that is what the concept of the private sector would be. So the Companies Act come into the picture at that time when I'm wanting to put in my own free capital and setting up the enterprises. So what is there before you right now is talking about how, as a private sector entrepreneur, tomorrow, if you want to set up your own enterprise, what are the options open? So these are the 5 options, broad ones. 4 to 5 options more are there, which are in the miscellaneous category, but I've taken up those which, as students, even at this stage, and even in the virtual hybrid system of learning, you all can pool in a team and then get into starting and making a business. So we have these 5 aspects. The first one you can see, I've put it as OPC. OPC ka matlab hai one person company. Then I have a public limited company, then a private limited company. We call it as a Section 8, and then a foreign company. I'll just talk a very, very little bit about the term I used, Companies Act. We were under a 60-year-old company law, which was Companies Act of 1956. But in 2013, we came up with a new act. So since 2013, India is governed by a new legislation, which the president had signed at that time, which is the Companies Act of 2013. So this, what you can see, is a gift to us from the Companies Act 2013, especially OPC, one person company. And as startups, as entrepreneurs in the first ring, OPC may be just the stepping stone, because OPC is one person company. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, I just want to be a one-man army. I don't want anyone else. So when we have that within us, the law has offered us this proposition of one person company, what you can set up. Now let's just pick up what does it involve. So one person company, if I'll just read through the first 2-3 lines, it says it's the most significant for the shareholders. It's called as a single person company. It's also a one person company, needs to have minimum 1 director. It can have directors up to a 15, and the provisions are stated in section 100 to 111. Now, what does it mean? The first category in which I can go about setting up my enterprise is one person company. What do I need for setting up that enterprise? You need only 1 director. So tomorrow, if you want to go about setting up a OPC, you get a business plan. You've thought about a business plan. Let's say after the 6 weeks of course that you're having, you plan out a business proposition and you want to set up an enterprise. My suggestion to you, my counseling to you is, this is the first setup that you should think about. Why? Financial constraints are minimum. You need just 1 person, 1 director to establish. Then maximum, जो आप third line में पढ़ सकते हैं, maximum is 15 directors is the upper cap. This is constant for all. So this also came with the new Companies Act. So maximum 15 directors are permitted in a OPC. So you have a business plan, you want to set up a company. So when you set up this, you will have the choice whether you want to have a thin board or a thick board. You just have 2 directors, one yourself and the other one, and then go about setting up your business. You have the entire 15. So it's at your prerogative, but the act permits you 1 up to maximum 15 directors are permitted for opening up or setting up or OPC under the Companies Act. Then the term is used both inclusive, so that is sections that we can ignore. Now, the next point says is authorized capital. Here, when you have to start as an entrepreneur, The problem comes is also the financial constraints. एक आप जो angel investors कहते हैं या फिर venture, when you go to a VC and you need a funding, the venture capitalist. Now the problems here that comes up is financial constraints. How do you go about asking? What is your backup? What is your backing as well? Now here OPC offers you, what is the minimum a share capital offered? 1 lakh. Now that has also been decreased. So आपके पास, there is a concept uh, in law, we have a concept of you have a memorandum of association when you go about setting up your enterprises. So you have to have certain documents which give you a stature of a company. So one we call as a memorandum of association and articles of association. So that gives us how much share capital you need to make it a company. So that is 1 lakh. It was authorized share capital, means the moot up capital, which will give you existence in the legal setup. So that was 1 lakh. That has now been again done away with. So the government is promoting more and more entrepreneurship through OPC, through sole proprietorship, and that is the reason the startups are also being multiplied. So this financial constraint also being taken away. This one is talking about public limited versus private limited, how public limited versus private limited goes. All right, we'll have to make a little comparison now. Like last 2-3 years back, I think once when I was taking this entrepreneurship camp, and some students, they came to me after I had finished it, and they came for a counseling as to what kind of a setup should we have, with the constraints, a couple of constraints they mentioned. So let's just do a small comparison, then we'll come down to what is the best form for us to set up as well. OPC is one where I personally advise the students to go ahead and grab it in the first go. Second, we are talking here of private limited versus public limited company. What is this? Private limited implies, in OPC, I needed one person company. So one director, you form a business plan and you can go and establish your concern. In a private limited, you need two. So the manpower increases. Here, the corporate formalities under the Companies Act increases because you get a stature. We call it as the artificial legal entity. So the minute your stature changes, they ask you to increase your holding and your shareholding and the manpower. So in a private limited, how many directors are needed? 2. How many maximum? Same, 15. What I just stated at that time for OPC, same applies here as well. So maximum directors 15, minimum 2. Then there is a cap. When you gather, and I use the word memorandum of association and articles of association, that applies here as well. So MOA and articles of association are incorporated. And there you, I was just trying out, in fact, while I was making this, that if I could show you a memorandum, it would have given you a better hand on, but I was not able to download from the net. Otherwise, how the memorandum looks is it has clauses. So it has a name clause of the company, registered office clause, and share capital clause, and so on. So when you talk of the number, the second line, what you can read here, it says the number of members. The object clause of the memorandum talks about that how many members, what will the company do? And from that perspective are born the members or the shareholders who contribute to your company. So what you are seeing here, the second and the first and the second point, it's talking about that minimum. Yes, we need to have 2 directors in a private limited company, maximum 15. Minimum members are needed, which is 50, and okay, I stand corrected, please. Minimum members needed are again 2, but maximum is 200. That was earlier, I just told you the new act has come in 2013, but before the new act came, it was 50. Now it has, the government increased the limit to 200. So maximum 200 number of members are there to give a setup, a stature to a private limited company. So my suggestion to you is, in case you have a business plan where you think you need, your because you'll have your financial projections. So if you think even in the next 3 years, your financial projections would be such that maybe you can reach a break-even analysis, this is the kind of setup that you should drive out for. So private limited company, in case of financial projections, and you think that the break-even can be reached. We understand break-even, no profit, no loss situation. Whatever you've invested, you get the money out of it, and it neutralizes your profits and losses. It also, the third point here, what it is stating is, it says the share capital is 1 lakh. Now, this again has been done away by the government. So we had 1 lakh as the moot capital. So when you had to start private limited company and you had to have the basic moot in capital. So 1 lakh nahi aapka agar usse reduced bhi hoga, you can still go ahead now. So this clause now with the recent changes, the public limited company, a comparison to that. How does it work? Minimum number of members are how many in a public limited companies? Minimum members are 7. All right. So minimum members are 7, but how many minimum directors are there? We've been talking as to directors, because tomorrow when you open up your own enterprises, you're going to start as directors. So how many minimum number of directors? In case of a public limited company, 3. Maximum kitna hoga? What I just have been saying, OPC may be 15 tha, private limited may be 15 hai, and even in a public limited company, it will be 15. All right. So if I have more resources, if I have more manpower resources, more financial resources, my project is giving me, my consultant has given me a projection that in the next 7 years, I can place my company at the global map. I would like to go in for a public limited company. So public limited company, how will it operate? 50, 7 is the number of members, and unlimited members exist in a public limited company. So if you just have to apply, and when I say unlimited company means you'll have a lot of shareholders, lot of equity shareholders would be pitching in. So all these multi-giants, what keep coming to our campuses are all public limited company, Wipro and Tata, Birlas, and the entire group which has an equity stake in the market would fall under this cadre. So this is the other one, how the actual public limited is mooted. The point that you have to keep in mind when you go in implementing, converting your business idea into actually setting up your own enterprises, keep a track of your resources, and then choose between the setup what you have. The legal formalities these days has simplified. In fact, lockdown has been a blessing in disguise, even for the legal part in setting up of the enterprises. Now, as it is, the government is wanting a lot of entrepreneurship to come. That is the only way we can get out of this phase we all are in right now. So the registration process is simplified. I'm going to show you in a while how this web portal looks like, where you can go about registering your enterprise. But this is what the broad outline of the legal formalities relating to a private limited company versus a public limited setup and versus OPC, depending on what kind of constraints you have and how do you propose to go about. All right. There is also the second point that it mentions is that section 149. It says minimum 2 directors, maximum 15 directors cap. It has given 3 in case of a public company. That stands same. When we use the term board of directors, so tomorrow when you set up your enterprise, let's say you go in for a OPC, 1-person company. You yourself are the entrepreneur, so you will become the director as well, founder or a co-founder, and then you will have entire board with you, you develop. So it is always advised to keep a thin board, not too many should pitch in. I'm making a statement, and since all of you are budding entrepreneurs, you've been studying, tell me, just apply, think about it. Why do you think this statement is right? Or do you agree this is right? Tomorrow you'll go in for your placements, you'll get placed. But most of the companies are going in for thin boards. Thin boards, less directors. Why do you think this would be right? Any one of us, any opinion? Do you think the statement holds good that the companies have less board of directors? It will function more. Do you agree it is right? Yeah. Komal, please go ahead.
Ma'am, because maybe they want to give out less equity of the company.
All right. That is one point. Okay, well taken. Anyone would like to add to what Komal said?
Decision making will be more easier.
Absolutely. All right. Both the points well taken. And what he said appropriately, decision making and along with coupled with the equity, it'll be much, much easier. It is decision making is the toughest thing, which actually reduces our efficiency tremendously. And decision making is one thing which at the top management level, they need to expedite. So decision making expedites. When you have few board of directors, what happens is you pass one resolution, it goes to the next one, and then the resolution gets ratified. Otherwise, it will be in the pipeline. Agar 15 directors honge, aap ek ko bhejenge, fir dusre ko, fir then by the time your resolution passes, the work is finished. So therefore, it doesn't meet the time management lines. So therefore, it is always advisable to have a thin board. So this is another pointer what you all should remember. Converting your business plan into the actual proposition coupled with 4C. That is the reason we advise that when you have your business plan, when you convert it into a business project report, you should have consultants who could guide you as to the projections. And accordingly, we advise that you should pitch in more board of directors. Accordingly, your funding will get expedited or delayed or whatever. So it's the board of directors which should be the deciding point. And when you formulate or you go ahead with choosing the kind of company, keep the business plan intact. All right. The next one, just a moment. Okay. Next one before you, what you can see is a Section 8 company, something very, very, something I always advise the students. What is this Section 8 company? Let's just take it up in a very, very layman's language that I'll tell you the name of these forms, what you can see huge. Section 8 company, earlier in the earlier act, what we had 60 years back, that was called as a Section 25 company. Iska naam hi Section 8 company. It's not something that we've given it a nomenclature, but it is called as a Section 8 company. What does it mean? What does it do? This is my one suggestion to you. If any one of you can, even at this stage, and maybe in the second year of your, or if you're in your final year, give this a try if you can formulate a Section 8 company while as students. What does it do? Section 8 company is basically, in a layman's language, NGO, in a layman's language, or a NPO. What do? They formulate charitable purposes, social purposes, religious purposes as well. Something meeting the social objectives. What have the entrepreneurs started doing? In fact, some of the batches that I taught prior to before this lockdown, when we were having the camps, so they came up with this idea that they want to form a Section 8 company. What is the new thing now in the Section 8 company? What they do is, since their purpose is religious, social objective, what they formulate, so they act as a liaison between the companies, the main corporates, and the the other corporate houses or the government to initiate social responsibility. There's a term called as CSR, corporate social responsibility, in amongst the corporate. Section 135 है Companies Act का, where 2% of the average profits of the last 3 years has to be taken, and that profit, the company has to do social objectives. It went through some changes right now during this lockdown because the social work had to be increased. So what they, this part of, the whatever the social, yeah, somebody had a question? Okay. So whatever this part of the, what they had taken, what Section 8 company does is, as a liaison between the two ends, they take the CSR funding from the companies, they utilize it for all the social objectives or the scientific research related objectives, and uh, on behalf of the other companies or the other agencies or the government. So it facilitates. Agar aap today, if you do not cater to the CSR objectives on time, so there is a huge penalty the government, the department lays. SEBI will send you a full-fledged notice that the CSR has not been met. So therefore, it is imperative to do it on time as well. So Section 8 companies, the role is becoming important, and the entrepreneurs are finding a way out to develop a new business model. So procuring funds from the companies, utilizing it to the best to your advantage, and then doing work, social work, or repatriating it further to the other agencies so that the CSR objective could be met. All these Pratham and all of them, they have been part of it. I think even Help Page, a lot of uh, Section 8 companies have been born during this lockdown as well. This is one part. Now, what is there before you? What you can see, it says, how do you go about registering it? First, the objectives. Registering is, of course, they've given a form. Now, this form, also in the last 10 days, it has gone through a change. I'll just show you that portal. So you'll be able to register your company with little ease if tomorrow you plan to take up this proposition. They've given a list of all these forms. This has also gone through a change. But what you need to remember, supposedly, if you plan out to go in for this proposition of Section 8 company or any kind of a NGO or NPO, you need a license. Vis-a-vis a OPC or a private limited company or a public limited company, license is required. And this license is given after they carry out a dry run, which takes roughly about 3.5 to 4 months. So that is the only connect here. This is what, if you can see on the third line, it is written a license for the Section 8 company for which Form RD1 is to be fulfilled. RD is Regional Directorate. So they fill in this RD1 form, and then thereafter the application gets processed. After it gets processed, it takes roughly about 1 month of the scrutiny, and after 1 month of the scrutiny, 3 months more for it to give them a go ahead. So this is the procedure how you go about doing it. So Section 8 company, a very opening avenue for the entrepreneurs. My suggestion in this time of pandemic, if any one of you have that plan, a business plan or a thought that you think you could convert it in this Section 8, you could always approach me even after this session. You could come to me anytime if you think I could be of a help in giving you the guidance or consultation anytime. But this is one thing what you could think about. It has few nitty-gritties, and the basic framework I'll just show you even through the portal where you have to go and do the process. All right. Okay, this I wanted to just place, although it is not relevant at this stage. We have certain foreign companies coming in. We understand what a foreign companies is. You call it in a layman's language as a MNC, or even it could be a franchisee, or we call it as a parent company settled abroad, and you are a subsidiary company here. All these Samsung, Sony, LG, all these would be part of this. The parent companies abroad, but they are working here from our laws. And since they derive their revenue from our law of land, so therefore they are accountable to pay the tax as well here. The process for setting, because they are operating from the Indian soil, so therefore they have to re-register themselves as per the Indian laws. So it's called as a foreign company, but then of course they have to go through the same process. The process is you apply for a name, and then you have to file few things with the registrar of companies. I'll just be showing you that through the slide. But the process remains the same for a foreign company as well. This is just for your academic knowledge to start with. I would not advise you to take any kind of a franchisee, but your business plan should be such as a startup. It could well fall under any of the 4 categories that we just discussed. All right. I'll just take you to this. Yeah, this part. This is the most important part, what you need to know. The incorporation process. What are we talking and where are we heading and what will you all do? So now you have a business plan. Now you know the legal formalities regarding what kind of an enterprise you want to set up. You've made a choice. You've hired a consultant. He's given you the idea, what you have to think, how you have to go about. Now, how do I go about registering it? What is my first step? The first most important step is you will obtain a Din and Dsc. Now, any one of us, have you come across what is this term Din? Since I'm just expecting that you are, though I've written the full form, but Din, what is the role of a Din if anyone has come across or if you've registered yourself as an entrepreneur or as a director, co-founder or come across this term? What is the rationale of a Din? Anywhere in the newspapers, if you read, it's not totally law related, but what is the importance of Din? Any one of us? Yeah, Komal, please go on.
Ma'am, as far as I've read about it, I think it's that it's a unique set of numbers. For example, a person wants to be director of any corporation, so they need to get this number to tell ki yes that I am the director of this corporation. So then is that.
Good. All right. Absolutely. All right. What she said rightly. DIN is Director's Identification Number. I've written the full form as well. So what will be the first step? The first step that you all will do is obtain a DIN and DSC. DSC ka full form hai Digital Signature Certificate. So this is your first stepping stone. So even if like supposedly, like this example that I was giving you of this one of the batches, one student who had come with their business plan and then they wanted a suggestion how to go about it. So he had applied for DIN and DSC, and then he was just choosing for the kind of company that he wants. Finally, he went for LLP. He didn't go for OPC, but this is the first stepping stone. What you can do it right now as well. So obtain DIN and DSC, which is your director's identification number and digital signatures. Second step is what? Now, all this you obtain through a portal, which I'm just going to show you in next 5-10 minutes. So that will be like a cakewalk. Even after this session finishes, your homework is, don't let this all erase out. Go to that portal, drink it like a tonic, digest it, try and reflect, and then you'll be able to apply. Probably you never know, your idea may actually tomorrow turn out into a reality. So after DIN and DSC, what is my second stage? Name availability. What do I do in this? So I apply to an entity जिसको हम बोलते हैं ROC. What is a ROC? Registrar of Companies. So what does a registrar of companies do? The name of the company has to be registered. He's a nominee, if I use the word nominee, of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, central government. So Ministry of Corporate Affairs are the one who actually nominate the ROC, Registrar of Company, the Registrar of Companies, and they thereafter, this is my first step. So if you and I, tomorrow you get a business idea, and then if you go to the ROC, which is now online, there is a form which they give you. Earlier it was called at Inc. 1 app. You can see it on your screen. Now this is just gone through a change. It's called as the SPICE forms. Name is only SPICE. SPICE is actually specified performer. The nomenclature is different, but of course the name flows like that. So SPICE form. I just lost out on the audio. So this part of the DIN, it will be, just a moment. Yeah. So the registrar of companies will put it through the next leg, which would be directly with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. 10 years back, this is way back in 2016, 14 years back, if we had to register a company. We had to stand in those huge queues for three hours outside this ROC's office. Today, it is done in 72 hours. 72 hours, I get the go ahead, which I was not getting earlier. So therefore, this part has improves. So second stage is name availability. Apply for the name of the company to be registered by filing Form Inc. 1 for the same. After that, depending on the proposed name, the company, in case supposedly what happens is like one of the cases I remember, I think it was this student only who was just going through the name availability process, and you have to fill this form and then give it to the ROC. And in case the name is already existing, then they do not allot you that name. So they strike off, they ask you to fill 3-4 choices. So in case the name is available, he'll grant you the name, your company's gets a name. Otherwise, you have to, they give you a suggestion for the other name. Third process would be what is most lengthy. This is called the incorporation stage or the incorporation process. What happens here is there is this compilation of the SPICE forms, which I'll just give you. So all these, what you can see on your screen on the last 3 lines, Inc. 7, Inc. 2, Inc. 22, DIR, all these are now clubbed into the SPICE forms, what we'll just see. You'll prepare your MOA. I mentioned it during the course of the lecture. MOA is the term. So I'll prepare my memorandum of association. I'll prepare my articles of association. I'll prepare other related documents. I'll prepare a power of attorney. There is an affidavit. And I've put in the all the list of all the documents, all these compiled together, and you will submit it online. Now online through the portal. In this third stage of your company incorporation. So in the third stage, my company is going through the incorporation process. And once 14 years back in 2005, when I was to incorporate a company and I had to stand for huge queues and then something like about a 60-day process, today it has reduced to just 1 week. So in 72 hours, I'm getting the name of my company online. In roughly about 1 week, on an upper limit, just about 10 days, the incorporation process gets ratified in case there is no objection by the ROC. He'll give you an objection only in case there is something, you've concealed some information. Otherwise, he gives you a go-ahead, and then finally the company's incorporation process is complete. There's a list of these forms, what you can see here. These acronyms, when you go to the portal and you find out these acronyms, जो आप INC देख सकते हैं, INC is a short form for incorporation. So INC 22 is basically incorporation form. And this is, if you just further read it, it says notice of situation of the registered office. So where you are located, just for that, you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to fill in this form INC 22, now simplified version through the SPICE form, which we'll see. Then it again shows a Inc. 22, that is in case the office is different and the corporate office is different. Then again, they ask you to fill one more form. DIR 12 form is filled what? DIR hoga. Inc. was for incorporation status. So DIR kiske liye hoga? Director. So as a director, who you are, how you are appointed, what is your personal details, where are you working, all those, because as a director, you're working in public domain. Please remember one point, you are an entrepreneur today. Tomorrow, when you become an entrepreneur, a director, or a founder of some company, you're working in a public domain, and then you carry your name, and then you're accountable to public as well. The minute you become a director of a company, your name comes in the public domain. Public domain implying there is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Somebody will fill in your name and they'll be able to find out that this person is director of this company, and then they can relate to you because whatever you are doing in the director's capacity, you are accountable to the public. So this is what, so therefore DIR 12, DIR 3, there are certain directors related forms which you have to file every year as your responsibility towards the public, since you're working for an enterprise which is a public limited. So these forms, DIR 12, particulars of appointment of directors, key managerial personnel changes, This form is to be filled by the OPC in case of a promoter or a sole director. So this is how the variations are. So we'll remember these forms. This is my third stage. Now, I have filed in my form in the incorporation stage. We were discussing the stage. So in the incorporation process, I have filled in my form with the ROC on the portal, and we have got a revert. So within about 1 week to maximum cap of 10 days, the ROC, Registrar of Companies, will revert back to me and my company is incorporated. The day he'll incorporate your company, he'll give you a certificate of incorporation. Your company is born. That is the birthday of a company. You go to all these big corporate houses and you enter the director's cabin and you'll see the incorporation certificates framed behind. That is because that is actually the day the company was mooted, born. This is what the incorporation stage finishes. Once the incorporation stage finishes, now when we started this session, we learned you could either go in for a private limited or a public limited, OPC, Section 8, we've given variations. Now, all process are same for all. And the companies are born at this stage. Incorporation process pe aapka company becomes functional. That means as an entrepreneur, now you've become director. You have an artificial legal entity. You are different from a company and your entity is different in the role as a director the day you get the certificate of incorporation. But supposedly, if you don't choose a OPC or a private limited company or the others, but if you want to go in for a public limited company, then you have to go through one more stage, what we call as the commencement stage. So in the commencement stage, within 6 months of the incorporation, you function for 6 months, and after 6 months, a certificate of commencement of business is given to you, and it is at that stage that a public limited company is actually comes into operational. The meaning of a public limited company that you can go to the public. Tata's, Wipro, HCL, NIIT, they can go to the public. Go to the public means they can raise equity from the market only once they have finished the commencement stage. So this is on a little higher level. I would never advise the students for you to directly go into a public limited company, but barring a public limited company, all the other 4 forms of entity, what we discussed, is well within your reach, what you can add on. There was one more slide. It's just intermingled here. So I'll just make a narration for that before I go on to the remaining latter part. There is, you could, instead of just going in for maybe like this part, there are 2-3 more processes that you could go through for the micro, small. All right, what we'll do is let me just float through a little bit more. Then I'll come down to the MSc. We'll be able to connect better. So I'm just from the point where I had left, I'm just taking you further. I'll come to that point of the MSME when I'm just concluding on the slides. From here now where we finished the commencement stage, I'm coming down to the next part. We'll connect the latter part later. The commencement stage and further how it operates. This I've already covered, but I'll just reiterate once again. We mentioned now you floated your company. Any of the categories of the company you have chosen, you've set up your enterprise has become operational. Now you have to start getting into the operational stage, the revival or the operational stage. Supposedly you've taken a funding. Now, if you've taken a funding, you'll get it in slots. So the next stage, how you have to become operational. Now, this stage, as per the law, it invites you for, it comes up that the directors need to be strengthened more. We've already spoken about this term earlier. I'll just put 2-3 more terms onto it. When you decide on floating further, there is a new entity that is born of directors, what you call as an independent director. So maximum 15 directors you have kept as a cap. But today, in fact, this is my one suggestion to all of you. You all are, as it is, budding professionals, and of course, you're studying in the best of the environment we've given you. You all have the competence to become independent directors, and it just requires a certain amount of experience. And there it is, the institution of independent director. Institution, what I'm saying is the forum for the independent directors is actually born since this new act came, what I told you in the beginning, the 2013 Act. Independent directors are required in every company today. And I'm sure many of you know, but just in case, if those of you who are not, how it works, independent directors, every company as per the Companies Act need to have an independent director, provided there's a certain turnover requirement. 500 crores hai, फिर 100 crores का अगर आपका profit है. So there is a turnover requirement. If you meet that, then you need to appoint an independent director. They've given a definition, 149 section, as to who can be an independent director, and it purposely says a professional, somebody who has an adequate amount of experience, maybe as a director or an employee of other company. So in fact, I've even seen news, some, just pass outs and just with who've worked for just 4 to 5 years and submitting their application and actually making it. So these are not impossible dreams, well within your reach. And I hope and pray you all make it for sure. So independent directors is an institution which is as well required. This is one thing that you have to keep maybe in the first year of your once you establish this comes, there is a section, what I just mentioned, 149. The government has become very strict in case you do not appoint them within the reasonable span. Again, SEBI will send you a circular and huge fine again levies. So that institution is important. Women directors, again, I'll just put across this term is to all the women here in the group, all of you, especially, this again came up with a new 2013 Act. Women directors are mandatory to be appointed in every board. Every company which has a 300 crores turnover must have a women director. That is a repository. And now it is all centralized. There is an institution which takes your applications, they process it, they review it, and then thereafter through the government nomination, then you get across on the board. But these two are actually something which I personally think is a gift to the entrepreneurs for further development. So keep in mind, but independent directors, women directors, important in the first 2 to 3 years once you establish your organization. Executive, non-executive directors, we understand the meaning. When you, from an entrepreneur, when you become, if supposedly if you're choosing a OPC, so you take up, the minute you become a managing director, you're called as an executive director, somebody who's there on the payroll and carries out all the functions of a company. Non-executive directors are those who, independent directors, somebody who's not there on the payroll of a company would be called as a non-executive director. So this is the difference. So this is how the basic board of directors proposition is decided and seen. So just keep in mind when you go in for choosing your enterprise, how it is. The first year is also very crucial. Otherwise, what will happen is your exit strategy would be may land up working out. So therefore, in order to avoid that, the first stage of legal formalities are equally important. Since we are going out on time now, I'll just quickly cover the other parts. Just introduce you to these points. As entrepreneurs, you should also know these 4 very important terms that came up in the company law with this new act. This is called as the cost audit, secretarial audit, external and internal audit were earlier also existing. Cost audit is basically when your company reaches a certain amount of turnover, 166 section, so they ask you to appoint a cost auditor. So, and huge remuneration mandatory that the government has given so that the entrepreneurs are not doing any window dressing of their accounts. Secretarial auditor is somebody who sees how the board matters are being discussed to the best. External audit, internal audit were always mandatory. External audit, you may have heard of all these, the renowned ones, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Arthur Andersen, all these, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, all these external auditors who carry out the audit. They are mandatory. Internal audit, also important, but that generally once you reach a break even of your profit and losses, you can go in for an internal audit, not in the initial stages when you set up the enterprises. All right, so this is broadly what is there in the company law aspects of you setting up the enterprises. All right, what I'm going to do is, let me just quickly finish this part of the Factories Act, and then I wanted to show you a small video one of my colleagues who had also worked in the MSME sector. So he's given very brief, crisp points as to how MSME changes have worked accordingly. So maybe when you are planning out setting up an enterprise, you could, that part of his talk may just help you. Let me take you first now to the Factories Act. What the Factories Act, we understand what I just discussed was the company law, because to set up an enterprise, it's very important first you actually moot in, know what you want to do and how you'll set up your company. Now, once you've set up your company, the labor plays a very important role. I have 7 to 8 niche laws in which my labor law perspective works. I have my Trade Union Act, I have my Factories Act, I have my Bonus Act, I have my Gratuity Act, taxation, PF, and factories, and other related aspects. So all this together comprise of labor law. So I'm not going to touch upon what you will do 5 years after you've incorporated, but basic you should know. Supposedly you want to set up an enterprise which is going to have factories. So there is a term, few terms which you should know. And initially when you go about setting up the enterprise, how do you manage out the PF component? And a little bit about the taxation aspect. So here, I'll just take you through. This is the broad provisions. The Factories Act was when we got independence, so 1948, and it's not been amended since then. So this is the first one. What you can see, the rights of workers should be warned about the imminent dangers. It is the duty of the occupier, agent, manager. In the Factories Act, we have a provision of occupier. Occupier or a manager, somebody who runs the entire factory. The Act provides us a definition as to what a factory would be. So they've given a bifurcation, 10 with the aid of power, 20 without the aid of power. And where occupier or a person who would run the entire factory would be able. So occupier, agent, manager, or the person in charge of the factory or process to take immediate remedial action in case there is any kind of a danger that comes up. So this is the first important thing what we need to know the minute you have labor working at a very, very grassroots level. Why Factories Act has come into the existence is more so because of the women worker. The lower level management, see, you are going to be at the helm of affairs as entrepreneurs, you'll work at the top level. Now what happens is a good leader is one who thinks from how the policies are getting implemented at the lower level. That is your first prime duty. So how do you go about doing that? The Factories Act broadly touches upon the how the lady worker or how they would cater. So here, if you just see facilities for just a moment. Yeah. So facilities for the canteen, and this is for the sitting facilities should also be there. There's a layout that is there in a factory that there has to be a separate for women, male workers, or if there is some children with ladies coming, then how would you provide them the facilities? So the sitting order has to be there. It is a duty of the occupier, manager, to provide the lunch rooms, canteens. That is important. Creche plays a very important role. last point that you can see here is it's talking about before the first aid appliance, it says facilities for ladies worker. The ladies worker, the women worker, if they have children under the Factories Act, it is important that they are provided a creche facility so that children can be accommodated. So this is one part what has come up with facilities for the ladies worker. Also, one very significant point that came up was a harassment committee is also become mandatory. That women protection should be there. Female security committee has become mandatory. So those aspects, the Companies Act coupled with the Factories Act has brought about in the recent past, in the last 2 years. Then annual leave with wages, casual leave entitlement, even if the factory workers, firstly, the factory workers, children are not allowed, but they have given a definition of adult. So even a child who's 14 years is entitled to work in a factory, not below that, but 14 years, hence they are permitted. They are having an entitlement irrespective they are working on a piece rate system or on a whole day for annual leave with wages. So they get casual leave and in case, and also sick leave in case they face a problem, then thereafter it can be carried forward just like a person on a payroll is. So that guarantee for the wages has come. These would come to you at a very, very late stage once you incorporate a company. But then if you plan for a manufacturing setup, you want to have your factory, the responsibility for a lower level cadre is much, much more than you have for a middle-level management. That is why especially the Factories Act and the Minimum Wages Act was enacted, so that the interest of the lower level management is not exploited. This is the annual leave with wages. Then this is safety and occupational health survey. This came up more after the Bhopal gas leak. So the manager of the factory or the person who's working, there should be occupational safety measures should be there. The fire extinguishers should be there in case there is a chemical factory. Those care should be taken, and facilities for proper examination, testing of plant machinery, and so on. So these are just the normal which should be provided. I'll take up one last concluding, the concluding slide here, which is for the Provident Fund. Just a moment. This before us Provident Fund, what it is, how it works out. When I always advise the entrepreneurs or the startups that when you go in this first 3 years, your company, how much, irrespective how much manpower you have, there is a Provident Fund Act. Now, if you are covered by the Provident Fund Act, again, you have a EPF, you have a recognized Provident Fund, you also have an unrecognized Provident Fund, you have a public Provident Fund. So employee Provident Fund, the employer has to constitute a corpus. From the corpus, he is entitled to make a deduction from the salary of the employee and at the same time make a equal contribution. So this becomes an expense. This is something like 5 years hence when you set up your enterprises and you propose to go, you will face these this aspect of PF. So 12% of equal contribution from the employer or the employee, from the employer or the employee of and the recognized Provident Fund. Also, in case there is one provision just came up, the finance minister announced the budget on 1st February. So they've announced in case it crosses 12% and the employer contributes more than 12%, then it is taxable in the hands of the employee. So that was one change that just recently came. The last part here is the public Provident Fund, which is talking about open to anyone. This is separate category, but if your employees want, they can also go in for a PPF. It's a part of what we call in tax income under the head salary that goes on totally different direction. There is a lock-in period the government has provided, which is our 15 years redemption. And then you get compound interest, not simple interest on that, but interest on interest is called compound interest, what is paid to you. All right, so this is broadly what is from my side, the broad provisions, what were there, which you need to keep in mind when you are going in for an enterprise. I started while I was telling you how various aspects are covered. So I said company law is there, MSME, labor law aspects. As an entrepreneur, you should know. The MSME aspects are also very important. We understand MSME is called as the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Act. What you can see on your screen is, of course, the legal language. But when you go about setting up a MSME, it is something which, after the period we are passing through right now, can revive our economy. The GDP can increase. But this is it. Earlier, it had slabs that it should not, the plant and machinery investment should be 25 lakhs, or it was in a slab of 25 lakhs to 5 crores and so on. So if you were making a specific amount of investment and if you were making a specific amount of plant and machinery, you would fall in a either in a micro or in a small or a medium. This is now changed. So that change you should know, because when you propose to decide on what kind of an enterprise you want to set up, this change will help you. So what I'm going to do is the theoretical part we'll hold up now. I want to show you a small video and I want to show you that portal where you could log in and just see, run through what we just learned. So I'll first show you the website of what we just learned, all the company law aspects. If you want to open an OPC, if you want to I think the audio is now. So if you want to just log in onto and see how the how to go about registering it, I'm just sharing the other screen of the portal with you. Just have a look. Can I please have a revert? Can you see this new website that I'm just displayed? Is it visible, please?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
This is what you have to log in tomorrow. If you have a business plan, please log into this website. You could take down, or of course, I'll just forward it as well. This is called as mca.gov.in. Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Any proposition, whether it's your OPC, whether it is your private limited, public limited company, the details are provided here. It also gives you a little training module if you're new to it. So regulator or an integrator or a facilitator or an educator, you could just log into any of these portals. How the MCA services work. In fact, what I told you, the DIN services, see here, what I'm just showing you across here. You could log into this DIN service, how the annual e-filing takes place, what is the DIN status. You could go into DSC. DSC is digital signatures. You could go in if you want to set up a one-person company or you want to set up a public limited, private limited. Those details are also provided here. They also give you a specific workspace, a login through which you can do it. So this is what you actually have to capitalize on and learn. This is, in fact, I would leave you with a homework to just go through this portal well. All these forms, what we just learned, the terminologies that I was just telling you, I even told you, introduced you this concept of independent directors. This is where it is. Uh, Once you establish yourself as an entrepreneur or as a managing director, God willing, yes. So this is another thing what you could think of. So all these details are there in mca.gov.in. All answers to setting up provided. So you could just see my PPT, and coupled with that, this will be very helpful. All right, I'm just showing you. I'll be closing now with the last small video. And that is how we'll close for the day. This video is by one of my colleagues, and he will tell you about the the MSME. I just told you about the MSME, so he'll just introduce how the changes for the MSME. Can I just have a revert? Can you see the video?
Ma'am, we can see the video, but we are not able to hear it.
Okay.
Audio is not playing.
Okay, okay.
Hello everyone, this is CS Divesh Goel, practicing company
Can you
secretary
hear
in
now?
Delhi.
Yes, ma'am.
We are going to discuss about the latest amendment in the MSME Act 2006. MSME Act means micro, small, medium enterprises. As recently, Ministry have made amendment in the definition of the MSME Act. So in this video, we are going to discuss about the entities which can register under MSME, what are the criteria to register under MSME, and which type of business can register under MSME. So let's start with our first question. Which are the entities, which are the type of entities which can register under MSME? So if anyone want to get registered under MSME, there is no limit ki who can get registered under MSME. Even a proprietorship firm, even a partnership firm, undertaking, association of persons, Hindu undivided families, companies, LLPs, etc. Any type of entity, whether it is an individual entity or it is a corporate, any type of entity can register under MSME. So it is not restricted under MSME that only a some restricted type of entity can register. So any type of entity as we discussed. Our question number 2 for today's video is, which type of business can register under MSME? So as per the MSME Act 2006, only the manufacturer and the service providers can register under the MSME. The traders are not allowed to register under MSME. Whenever we go for the registration under MSME Act, it is specifically mentioned that if you are in the manufacturing or you are in the service, then only you can register under MSME. Otherwise, it is not allowed to register under the MSME Act. Now the third condition, what are the criteria to register under MSME? This is the latest amendment under the criteria for the MSME. Earlier there was the criteria for the investment. Criteria was divided as per investment for registration under MSME. There was a separate criteria for the manufacturing industries and there was a separate criteria for the service industries. But after this amendment, now the criteria are not only based on the investment, now the criteria is also based on the turnover. So earlier there was only investment as a criteria, now investment and turnover both are the criteria to get registration under MSME Act. Now the entities have to fulfill both the criteria. So criteria for the investment in plant and machinery in case of manufacturing entity, and investment in equipment in case of service entities. Let's discuss the latest criteria for registered under the MSME Act. So as per the latest criteria of the MSME Act, if any entity want to register under MSME, it is divided into three categories: micro, small and medium. All three categories having different limits. First, let's discuss the limits to get registered under the micro entities. So the limit for the micro entities, the investment size of the entity should be less than 1 crore and turnover should be less than 5 crore. If the entity fulfill both the criteria, that entity can register itself for the MSME, for the micro industry under MSME. So let's move to the small. For the registration under as a small entity under MSME Act, the criteria for investment is 10 crore rupees, less than 10 crore rupees, and the criteria for turnover is less than 50 crore rupees. And same we move to the medium enterprise. In the medium enterprise, if any entity want to register under the medium enterprise, the investment size of entity should be less than 20 crore and the turnover criteria of the company should be less than 100 crore. So these are the three criteria for the micro, small and medium. Now I'm just telling you one trick how we can learn the criteria. You just
So this was broadly what I just wanted to highlight. Of course, after that, if you so wish, you can see more, then it gets on to the academic part. But these were the changes which was recently incorporated and how it has been. All right, so I finish my talk, what I had, the presentation, and this is my few inputs, and I hope that you can implement. If you think I could be of any help, any point, you could please approach me. And best wishes. I hope you become great entrepreneurs and great directors as well. Best of luck. That's all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So participants, if you are having any query, any doubt, you may ask, please. Yes, any query?
Any one of us, anything you could ask now, anything pertinent to even the MCA portal, we could ask now. If you want, you could also send it to me across later. I leave it at your prerogative. And I would either ways also send this details of the link so that you could go through that and re-revise on whatever we learned today. Any question, please, any one of us.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is that what is the legal position of pre-incorporation contracts? Like we enter into several expenses and contracts. So what is the legal position of that pre-incorporation contracts?
Incorporation contracts, you mean to say when we enter into any kind of contracts?
Yes, before
See,
our incorporation of the company.
before our incorporation. Okay, see, so what happens is that if you are entering into, once you have set up, there is a term called as preliminary expenses or incorporation contracts. So if those incorporation contracts are done by the promoter of the company, the person who has conceived the idea and mooted the company, if he's a party to that, then within 2 months of having entered into these incorporation agreements or whatever preliminary expenses you incur towards it, you adopt it in a meeting, what we call as statutory meeting, and those incorporation contracts are then ratified. But then your first director या फिर आपका जिसको आप promoter बोलेंगे should be a party to it. Nice, good. That is how it.
So, okay. Any other query? Any other doubt? So participants, please do not hesitate. Yes, anyone is having any doubt?
Ma'am. Hello.
Yeah,
Yes,
Mahima,
yes.
go on, please.
Ma'am, are there any budget or salary constraints when it comes to Section 8 companies?
Budget constraints, budget implying how, no, for the time being, we do not have. So you do not have, because it's, I told you in a layman's language, it's actually the NGO. So it is not having any authorized capital constraint as to how much you would have. It was there earlier, but now ever since this OPC and private and public limited company, that has been done away with. So right now, if you wish to float a Section 8 company, it is purely through the basic two documentations, coupled with the difficult part is only the license there, which gives a problem.
And ma'am, what about the salary thing? As though we'll be NPO, but still we'll be providing salaries to the people who are working with us. So how does that play out?
Salary, no, salary you will get. See, they are required to maintain up, jisko you'll call it as an income and expenditure account. You have to maintain financial statements. Even if you are an NPO or an NGO, or you would have heard of all these, I'll uh, let's say even a charitable organization, let's say even a religious organization, all these, they are registered societies. They have to file their income tax return as well as their tax audit has to be done. They may file a nil return. Every entity, even a Section 8 company, they have to file a tax return. They have to get their tax audit done, financial statements. तो वो उनका nil return आ जाएगा. उसमें they can show that this is what maybe we received in the form of a donation. This is what was done as a service this person has been rendering, and this is how. So they show it as an account of how they managed their funds. They file it with the registrar or with the nearest tax companies, get their audit done, and that is how they have to meet the assessing requirements.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, that is how.
Yes, participants, any other query? Yes, Komal?
Yeah, Komal, go on, please.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, first of all, thank you for this session was very informative. And ma'am, second of all, I wanted to know that is there any major difference between an incorporation company and private limited? Because I've seen certain similar companies having different succeeding this names, and I want to know if there is any advantage if we go for any one of them. For example, if I go for private limited, is there any certain tax advantages which I can get or anything like that?
Incorporation is generally, a normal term considered, Komal. When we go in for a private limited company, see, vis-a-vis OPC, incorporation is just a process. Maybe you have read INC towards the end. That is, INC is incorporation process. We are not using it in Indian law here. Maybe abroad somewhere, but INC as such we are not using. Supposedly, if your company is OPC, so towards the end of the nomenclature, you will write OPC, or if it is a private limited company, towards the end, you write private limited. OPC, when it is a private limited company, you have, the company is closed. You cannot go to the public to raise money. That is a constraint in a private limited company. But then you are a separate legal entity, so you have a lot of benefits which a company form of organization has in case you are a private limited company or a OPC. Both are same, because OPC is also one person company or a private limited company. Like there is a certain provision even for a loan that you can get from the bank. Then your audit provisions become little simpler. Your the requirements for the how you have to, how many directors you need to have. So everything directly or indirectly, it starts affecting your turnover. So that impact it has when you register as a company. But the minute you are, let's say, sole proprietorship, या आप बाहर आपने जहाँ पे INC देखा है, if sole proprietorship in India is, you don't have to register a sole proprietorship. You can just start, like, you can, even today you can start it from your own residence. So ho jisko aap bolte hain, so you start, and tomorrow, God forbid, if there is some kind of a problem, an unregistered company, unlike a private limited or OPC, if they are not registered and if you start, then what happens is the third party can file a suit against you, but you cannot take any action against them. So the problems relating to the legal cases as well as the financial comes up in case you are not registered, and vis-a-vis if you have a legal entity. So that is why generally it is advisable the minute you reach a little turnover requirement to get yourself registered.
Okay, so thank you so much, ma'am.
Sure, anytime.
Yes. Participants, any other query? So I think, ma'am, now we do not have any query, and students are now well aware about all these things, participants. So, ma'am, on behalf of food processing and IoT TEDP organizing team and participants, I thank you, Monica, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time. Thank you for this informative and interactive session. Looking forward to some more sessions from you, ma'am, in near future. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Sure. Anytime. It was a privilege. More than welcome anytime. And best wishes to all of you become the greatest entrepreneurs on the global map. All the best. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, participants, attendance sheet has been circulated in the chat box. Please mark your attendance. And once you have marked the attendance, you may leave the session.
All right, then, best wishes.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So I'll just log out, ma'am. Thank you and goodbye.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Sindhu ma'am. Ma'am.
Yes, Mahima, you have raised your you have lowered your hand now. So participants,
Ma'am.
Yes, you want to ask something?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Sakit sir, meeting has ended. You may end the meeting after some time because
Yes.
it's over now. Yes, Mahima,
Okay,
you are asking something. Okay, Sakit sir. Yes, Mahima, you are asking something.
Actually, every day we have to tell this that we cannot access a chat box, so we cannot put down our attendance. It is also because we cannot find the teams
Okay,
in
no
our.
problem. Message me. I will message you the link of the
Haji
attendance.
sir, I've messaged you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The same process will be followed every day, right? For the attendance.
So if you're not able to have mark your attendance in the chat box, so just WhatsApp hi to me or Saket sir. Will be just pasting that in your WhatsApp group, okay? In your individual WhatsApp, personally WhatsApp. So Saket sir, I think we can end the meeting now.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Saket, sir.
Ah, yes,
Sir,
Mahima.
I think you've turned off your net mobile
Hmm?
data.
Just a minute, I'm checking it.
Okay.
Okay, I got your message. I'm sending it. हाँ मालवा करिए